Welcome back to another edition of 10 out of 10 albums. This is where I will tell you albums that I think deserve a 10. I'm not saying this is the objective list of the best albums of all time or anything like that. I'm just saying that for me, these albums are 10s. And a lot of people ask me this, which is the reason why I'm sharing it. Typically, you know, I'm more of a singles kind of guy. I'll just listen to one or two songs here or there from an album, more into like playlists, or back in the day I would make mixtapes, same kind of thing. But there are albums that are actually that good front to back where you don't find yourself reaching for that skip button. And that is what we're here to do. We're going to try to make a list of 10 out of 10 albums, and I will give you some of mine today.
But first, I want to thank Factor for sponsoring this video. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, and dietitian approved meals right to your doorstep. It's clean eating made easy, which is perfect for me because I care a lot about my diet, but I also don't have a lot of time to cook, and to be honest, I kind of hate cooking. Factor supports wholesome eating made simple. Their meal plans also have a ton of variety, with a rotating weekly menu of over 25 different options. So you can choose your favorite meals or let Factor craft your order based on your taste preferences and order history. One thing I also really like is that they are way more fresh than the other options. And they only use premium ingredients as opposed to a lot of the other stuff you see that's like frozen and super processed. You don't want to eat that stuff. I work a lot, and like I said, I honestly just kind of hate cooking. So I love that when it's time for lunch, I can just run downstairs, grab something out of the fridge, heat it up, and I'm good to go. It's really convenient, but I am also hitting my macro goals. This time I got the Calorie Smart option, and honestly, they taste great. So if you want to check it out, head to go.factor75.com/fin60 and use the code fin60 to get 60% off your first Factor box. Once again, that is go.factor75.com/fin60 and use code fin60 to get 60% off your first Factor box, or hit the link in the description of this video.
The first one that I would say is the self-titled album by Korn. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? I need to know. So many dreadlocks. Are you ready? I'm ready. Who else is ready? The drip in this video is unreal, isn't it? This riff, I mean, it's so simple, but it's so great, right? Raise your hand if you're ready. I'm ready. I'm very ready. I love how shitty these drums sound, actually. They sound like they're recorded in a closet. I mean, what is there to say about this? This is up there with Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, Nirvana, Nevermind, Green Day, Dookie. I mean, this is one of those albums that you can like it, you can hate it, but it legitimately did change the world. I mean, nu metal was probably, well, no, I would say emo was probably the last big sort of new thing in rock, but nu metal was probably the second to last new one. And nu metal, other than grunge, is probably the biggest thing to happen in rock, certainly the biggest thing ever to happen in metal. I mean, this is the last time that metal was actually mainstream, and this was almost 30 years ago now. These bands are still relevant. Korn is still relevant. They never really fell off. Tells you a lot about how important this album was, and the fact that you can still listen to it, it still sounds great. What I think is so crazy about this album is, to this day, nobody else sounds like Korn. There's a ton of bands that have ripped off Linkin Park. There's a ton of bands that have ripped off Slipknot. I mean, I still think that Linkin Park and Slipknot are better than the imitators, but like, Korn is one of these bands that's so distinctive that people don't even really try to rip them off. You know, they don't even try. Like, they're influenced by Korn for sure, but like, people don't even try to copy Korn, really. It's just nobody else can do it. You can't do it. You could try to copy Korn, but it wouldn't work. It's like, what's that band, Chaosium? Do you guys know that band from, I think they're from Switzerland? They're the only band that has like really gone full Korn. I mean, they went full Korn. Like, even down to the bass tone. I guess they do it pretty well, but it's terrible, you know? It's terrible. It's exactly, this is Korn from eBay. It's terrible. Hey, good for them. I mean, 8 million views, but listen to how much he sounds like Jonathan Davis. They literally did go full Korn. They look like people who would post Joker memes on Facebook. You can say what you want about Korn. Maybe you hate nu metal, maybe you hate Korn, I don't know, whatever. But you cannot deny how important this album was, and you also cannot deny that this is a 10 out of 10. You can listen to this whole album front to back, it still holds up, and also every one of these songs has its own identity, you know, whether it's like Daddy or Ball Tongue or Blind or Clown, like the songs actually like stand on their own. They're saying and doing different things, which is something a lot of albums just kind of all run together, and you might like the sound of that. But to me, the hallmark of a really strong album is that each one of the songs kind of stands on its own, doing its own thing, which is certainly the case for this album. I don't think too many people are going to argue with me that this is a 10 out of 10, but if you don't think this is a 10, seek help. Seek help, my friends. If this is not on your list of 10s, seek help. Next up, another band a lot of people were surprised not to hear on my previous list is Hatebreed. Now, it was hard to choose just one Hatebreed album because I actually like most of their albums just for different reasons. This might be a little bit surprising because a lot of people would say that Satisfaction is the Death of Desire is the best Hatebreed album. I disagree. I certainly don't think it's bad by any means. I think it's very good, but it's definitely not the one that I would choose to listen to. I think it's kind of raw and unpolished, and like, you know, I think the songwriting just kind of wasn't quite there. I think maybe people heard that one at a certain point in their life and that's why they like it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's very good, but I actually think the self-titled album would be my favorite. The artwork is horrible. The artwork looks like something from that Mid-Journey AI. If you're like in the style of like Affliction, Hatebreed, and Megadeth, and it would like spit this out and you're like, all right. Yeah, I mean, it looks kind of brutal. But anyway, you know, with Hatebreed, it's like the newer stuff is like full on metal. The earlier stuff was like straight up hardcore. And I've been listening to Hatebreed since their demo came out in '96. I've been listening to them since the very beginning. This album to me is that perfect middle ground of the sort of energy and aggression and song structure of hardcore with the heaviness and precision and production of metal. This is a very underrated Hatebreed song, by the way, Become the Fuse. You don't hear a lot of people talking about this one, but you should. Listen to this drop coming up.
Ignited with burning conviction. Oh, become the fuse. You know what it takes to be a guy.
Great lyrics, too. I'll tell you a story about this one. This song, Not My Master, this album came out in 2009, I think. And I remember going to see Hatebreed right after this album came out in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati in the 2000s had an extremely violent hardcore scene. Like, somebody got killed at a Life of Agony show there. A friend of mine got stabbed and almost died at a show at Bogart's. I mean, it was fucking real. That hardcore scene there was very gnarly. The breakdown in this song is so brutal. I remember going to see them right after this came out. It was a Hatebreed with Cannibal Corpse, I think. And I was like, God, I wonder if somebody's going to get their fucking face broken tonight. Like, I'm legitimately halfway scared that someone's going to get killed when they play this song because the breakdown was just irresponsibly heavy. Yeah, shout out to Courage Crew. A lot of people have bad things to say about Courage Crew. I do not. Shout out to the boys in Courage Crew. This is the breakdown I'm talking about. I thought, when they play this, are the boys in Courage Crew just gonna take everyone's fucking heads off? Love this one. This is the part where some dude in Courage Crew punches you in the back of your ear with brass knuckles and you end up in the fucking hospital with a broken jaw. What a lot of people don't understand about Hatebreed is their lyrics, and this is the reason why I like Hatebreed so much. Obviously, like, if I had to pick one, like, big band with the most violent shows, for sure it's Hatebreed. Like, Hatebreed leaves a trail of death and destruction behind them. Their shows, by far, the most violent dance floors you'll ever see of any big band. However, at the same time as they can be kind of like angry and negative and destructive, if you actually listen, the lyrics are super positive. It's really like Tony Robbins. Call it Tony Robbins core because it's all like aggressively positive shit. And to me, like, that's what I really respond to about it, especially, you know, when I was younger and I was really in a bad place. You know, those songs really fueled me at a time when I really needed it. I mean, 2009 was like, without a doubt, the hardest, worst year of my life. And so when I listen to that self-titled album, it really takes me back to that, and still holds up. You know, 13 years later, still love it as much as I ever did. So shout out to Hatebreed. That album is a 10 in my book, but really can't just pick one. So many good albums in the Hatebreed discography. All right, next up on the lighter side of things, we have All Killer No Filler by Sum 41, which lives up to the title. It is indeed All Killer No Filler. A masterpiece, I would say. How could you not like this? We've got this young Asian bro here in his shorty shirt. Look at these kids who are just so stoked. They bought all their fresh new outfits from the CCS catalog or from Zoomies just so they could be in the Sum 41 video. So stoked to be here. These kids like, fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah. We're gonna be in the fucking Sum 41 video. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, Chad. Fuck yeah, Kyle. Fuck yeah, Carson. Fuck yeah, Cody. We're gonna be in the fucking video. Cody, dude, bro, I'm so pumped, bro. I know I'm not the one you thought you knew back in high school. Never going, never showing, never reacting. Looks like we've even got a ska girl here. The ska girl sort of skanking here. The rapping, probably not the best part. Lately, I've noticed a lot of people think Chuck is their best album. That's because Chuck is where they went more metal. And, you know, metal nerds are everywhere. The metal nerds always like the thing that's the most metal. I don't know, like if you know Indian people never, ever, ever get sick of eating Indian food. And metal people never, ever, 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 ever get sick of listening to metal or talking about metal or thinking about metal or telling other people about metal. You will never, ever, ever hear a metal fan be like, no, enough of the metal. Let's listen to something else. Never happens. I personally think that this is their best album because it's really, it's like honestly kind of a masterpiece. Like it's genuinely progressive because it has, you know, it's got the sort of metal stuff. They could definitely play a lot better than most pop punk bands. So it's got a little bit of the precision of metal, but it is a pop punk album at heart. So it's like really catchy. It's got the like rappy sort of stuff, at least in this song. I don't think they have that in any of the other songs, but it's honestly a masterpiece front to back. Super strong songs. The video and just the vibe is just so fun. Takes me back to just not giving a shit about anything, and lived with my friend Todd from the band Champion at a house in Seattle. Very carefree, fun time in my life when all I wanted to do was like download stuff off of Napster and fart on Todd and our friends. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I wanted out of life. This album is indeed All Killer, No Filler. You know, Chuck, I think, is a very good album too. But just, I don't know, the metal stuff just doesn't do it for me. Nothing wrong with Chuck. But for me personally, if I had to choose one album out of the Sum 41 catalog, it would absolutely be All Killer No Filler because it is exactly that. Moving along to something on the poppier side of things, we have Charli XCX's album, How I'm Feeling Now. Very interesting album. You may know her. I'll just give you a little brief overview for those may not be familiar. Charli XCX's breakthrough was in Fancy by Iggy Azalea. You remember this? 2014, you could not escape this song. You may know her for singing the hook in this song, which, by the way, she wrote in like 20 minutes. What you may not know about Charli XCX is that not only is she a super talented performer, she is a god-tier songwriter. To be able to write a hook like this in like 20 minutes, no joke. Love this song. Love this hook. Another song from this era that you may remember, which she also wrote the hook to, I Love It by Iconopop. I love her verse on it too. We gotta kill this switch. You're from the 70s, but I'm a 90s bitch. That's what I tell everyone. You're from the 70s, but I'm a 90s bitch, even though I actually am from the 70s. But I identify as a 90s bitch. With that being said, I mean, I like pretty much everything that she's done, but this album that she did in 2020, she did this, to give you an example of how talented she is. She wrote and recorded this whole album, I want to say in like a month and a half or something like that. Maybe it wasn't even that long. This was during quarantine when she was basically, you know, bored, didn't have anything else to do. So she was like, oh, fuck it, I'll make an album. She wrote and recorded this whole album in like a month, and it's like It's like mind-blowingly creative. Like easily the best thing in the whole genre of hyperpop because that's just how good she is. I mean, they're shooting this video in her kitchen, I think.
Me too.
Really cool video. She's kind of moved on from this style because she's just so talented that she's not the type to get too comfortable in any one style because she's so talented. She can kind of do whatever she wants. So she made one album in this style and then kind of moved on. But I would say like this is really, I don't know. It's sort of like one of these albums where I sort of understand why she moved on because there's no way that you could do this better than what she did with this album. I mean, it's sort of like, it's a mic drop of an album. It's like, all right, I came like and basically conquered the style. There's no reason for me to keep hanging out here doing this again and again and again because clearly I mastered it on my first try. So I'm out, I'm on to the next thing. So I'm a fan of everything that she has done, but I would say, especially if you're a weird person and you're interested in getting into any of her music, I would start here because it's definitely the weirdest shit she has done. You might not like her other stuff that's more straightforward pop, but this album, another 10 out of 10, no skips, fantastic. I would say it's classic. People will be listening to this in 20 years. I guarantee it. People will listen to this in 20 years and hold it up as an example of like a super influential, like mind-blowingly creative album because it is. Next up, I don't know if I'd say this is a no skips album, but I would say it is a 10. A little bit of a deep cut. You might be surprised to hear me call this a 10, but I would say it's a 10. This is Divine Intervention by Slayer from 1994, which is an album that I feel like a lot of Slayer fans don't like, but I love it. Listen to this shit. I remember when this came out, my friend who was like real into hardcore, like Sick of It All and Strife and Snapcase and that sort of thing, he was like, dude, the new Slayer album sounds like hardcore. And I was like, really? What? And I listened to it, I was like, shit, it does sound like hardcore. This song is so fucking fast. It does sound like hardcore, right? Sounds like 80s hardcore, but way better. I love the drum sound too. It's such a strange drum sound. It's so like rubbery and weird. The production on this is so strange. I've never heard anything that sounds like this before or after. By the way, fun little piece of based trivia. This song is about Rush Limbaugh. Ditto heads were the people who were Rush Limbaugh fans in the 90s and would just like basically got all their opinions from Rush Limbaugh because they were just like, ditto. What Rush said, ditto. And I'm unsure if this is like Tom Araya saying that he is a ditto head, meaning that he's a Rush Limbaugh fan, or I don't really know what the reference is, but I kind of think it is Tom Araya saying that he's a ditto head, because knowing now that Tom Araya is a conservative Chilean Catholic dad, it would not surprise me at all if he was a Rush Limbaugh fan back in the day. But regardless of what you think about that, I think you can agree that this song fucking rips. The very first song on the album, so weird. Listen to the drums here, it's so strange. Love this fucking drum sound. This is just like what every 2022 like trendy Bandcamp hardcore band wants to sound like. Every band on Sound and Fury just wants to sound like this. This album is so good, so underrated. It's just hilarious to picture Tom on a bus on his way to play a Slayer show, sipping tea and listening to Rush Limbaugh like, you know, this guy's making some good points. Hey, I can see it. In any case, if you haven't checked it out, you know, I think the first several Slayer albums are all great. Raining Blood, obviously, South of Heaven and Seasons in the Abyss, also great. I think everyone sort of agrees on that. But what a lot of people maybe are sleeping on is Divine Intervention. So check it out. I think it's great. Next up, speaking of Rush Limbaugh, people who are maybe not such big fans of Rush Limbaugh, Rage Against the Machine, their self-titled album from 1991. It is a 10 out of 10. Grooves so hard. I think Tom Araya is a clown, and I think Audioslave fucking sucks. But with Zach, they sound so good. Zach is the magic ingredient here. Without Zach, corny as shit. With Zach, amazing. Zach is the magic ingredient. Incredible vocalist. I imagine everybody knows this, but I will play it just to make sure that you know. This is Zach's hardcore band, Burning Fight, which many people would say was the best hardcore band of their generation. And I wouldn't disagree. This is from 1990, right before Rage Against the Machine. He's definitely the best hardcore vocalist of this era, hands down, no question. Great lyrics, too. Yeah, absolutely. Best lyricist to most things he touches. I completely agree. Zach's lyrics are incredible. Anyway, so Rage Against the Machine. I mean, and he got even better since then. Every song on this album holds up. Again, like I was talking about before, to me, an ingredient of what makes an album truly great is if every song in the album stands on its own, and that is absolutely the case on this one. And I will say, whether you agree with Rage Against the Machine's politics or not, and I don't agree with a lot of them, what you got to give them credit for is that they were able to get like mainstream attention for a very... I would say very respectable message. They very effectively used Rage Against the Machine as a vehicle for their message. For example, this song is about Leonard Peltier, who is a Native American activist that got involved in a shootout with the police, and some people say that he was unjustly imprisoned, and some people, I don't know what the truth is. Either way, the point is, Leonard Peltier and Mumia Abu-Jamal and some of the other things that they were talking about, this is stuff that unless you were part of like, you know, pretty serious kind of political circles, I knew about this stuff from hardcore, but unless you were part of like hardcore or something else like that, these were issues that nobody in the mainstream was even aware of. And because of Rage Against the Machine, single-handedly, these things, and later on, like the Zapatistas and stuff, these became things that like random people from Middle America knew about. Now, obviously, a lot of people ignored the message or didn't care or blah, 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 you know, whatever. They can't control that. But if their goal was to spread awareness for this message, they were absolutely effective in that. So whether you agree with it or not, I gotta say, completely respect them for using the band as a vehicle to get this message out. I think since then, you know, Tom in particular has become sort of a cringy person that seems to care more about shining his own star than he does spreading awareness for some of these issues that they talked about. And I think without Zach, his music sounds like terrible, corny dad rock. But especially on this album, just absolutely magical combination of, you know, sort of the aggression and anger and political edge of like that early 90s, late 80s kind of hardcore, that plus rap, plus, I mean, you know, say what you want about Tom as a human being, but as a guitarist, he definitely was brilliant. Like nobody was playing crazy sounds like that in 1991. So this, to me, is the defining Rage Against the Machine album. I don't know if it's the most popular one, but to me, you really can't fuck with this album. Classic. All right, next up, a newer album, Disgusting by Beartooth, which came out in 2014. A lot of people think of Beartooth now as sort of like a, I don't know, sort of maybe a little bit of a radio rock band, which some of their material is. But this album, I remember when this came out, when Beartooth came out, this was right off of Attack Attack breaking up. I think it's kind of interesting to me that a lot of people don't know that Caleb was in Attack Attack. Beartooth came out sort of out of nowhere. He was just a kid from Columbus. I want to say he was like 19 or 20 or something like that when he did this. The Sick EP was great. I think Disgusting is even better. Like to this day, there's nothing that I have heard that sounds like this sort of combination of like really fucking nasty, grimy, just brutal, sounds like the sort of like nasty hardcore that would be on like Southern Lord or something like that, a band that would play with Converge, mixed with these like super big, just straight up pop choruses. Nothing else. This is like still mind-blowing to me. And then this like super catchy pop chorus. Also very cool, the other people in Beartooth, well, at least the guitarists and bassist, is Ashi and Cam from City Lights, which was one of my favorite pop punk bands of the whole like 2010s kind of era, and very good friends of mine. Used to hang out with them all the time when I lived in Columbus. I do miss those guys, so it was really cool to see them end up in Beartooth. We got to listen to the breakdown of this. Here we go. What a filthy breakdown. Oh, Cam's not in the band anymore? When did that happen? Anyway, one thing that a lot of people may not know about Beartooth is that with the exception of a couple albums, or of basically one album, certainly for the first several albums, this is all Caleb. Caleb wrote everything, played everything himself, mixed and mastered everything himself for the first several albums. So that is how talented this man is, and I would say kind of underrated. I feel like more people who are into hardcore should fuck with this album, because this sounds like hardcore, right? This part. I feel like this is also actually kind of like the best hardcore album like ever written, almost. Incredible shit. Shout out to Caleb and everyone else in the band. Sad to hear that Cam is apparently not in the band anymore. That's too bad. In any case, a 10 out of 10 in my book. And the last one that I would say is a 10 out of 10 is As Daylight Dies by Killswitch Engage. I would say there's other albums in their discography that you could also say are 10s, but if I had to pick just one, it would be this. I mean, you know it's 2000s metalcore when you've got the pretty girl in a white dress looking confused in a random field. That's how you know it's a 2000s metalcore video. Those riffs, those Adam D riffs, nobody does it better than him. Howard, for sure, the best vocalist in this genre, period. Those pinches. Now, there's a reason why Killswitch was the breakout band of this era. I wasn't really big on this sound, and I'm still not. The what I like to call the At the Gates core era, which is basically when guys in hardcore bands discovered At the Gates and started doing this kind of thing. I'm not big on this sound in general because I think for the most part, it's riff salad. It's just people like throwing together sort of half-assed At the Gates riffs with some half-assed breakdowns and calling it a day. I think that most of those bands just sort of forgot to write songs. But Killswitch Engage definitely does not fall into that category. These guys have songs all day long. Yes, obviously they have great riffs, but they have songs. I mean, these are like actual like radio singles in the sense of like almost like classic rock. And also, I mean, Howard's vocals, obviously a huge part of that. Nobody else in this genre could sing like him. You take like that songwriting with actual hooks and choruses and structures with Howard's vocals, with Adam's riffs, you got a classic. I mean, this album also has Holy Diver on it. It has Arms of Sorrow on it. Really just incredible shit that stands on its own today. I would also say, you know, they're not the first band to do clean vocal choruses like this, but I would say within this style of metalcore, I think they're definitely the band that really put it on the map for a lot of people because they just did it in a way that felt so good. A lot of those bands kind of felt like they were like flipping a switch between are we heavy or are we melodic? With Killswitch, it didn't feel that way. It felt very like organic, like they were just sort of changing gears rather than flipping a switch, if that makes sense. So I would say, for me personally, I think this album to me is the definitive mid-2000s metalcore album. I don't think anybody will ever do this style better than they did. Every one of these songs stands on its own. You know, there's still a whole generation of people, all the, you know, 30-year-old metalcore dads now are still listening to this one all the time. A kid that's getting into metal now that doesn't even know what metalcore is could listen to this album and it would still sound current, I think. I don't know if they still play this in Octane, but if not, they should. So either way, regardless, I think you got to give this one a 10. When it comes to metalcore, nobody has done it better than Killswitch, in my opinion. Certainly not in this era of metalcore. If I was to pick one band as the greatest metalcore band of all time, I would pick Killswitch. I don't think anybody has done metalcore better than they did. That is my opinion. And if you don't like it, well, that's okay, because it's just my opinion. And that does it for this edition of 10 out of 10 albums, closing it out with Killswitch Engage.